What is up? Hey, so next up, we're going to talk about some of the most popular diets that you're going to see out in the world. And last time we talked about what the best diet is, and typically most people want to lose weight. So that's kind of the focus of this. So remember, this is not an in-depth study on all of those. Like if you want to go do an in-depth study, find an academic who can give you break by break. I'm a coach, I'm a personal trainer. I'm all about optimizing you in the shortest period of time possible. So that's really what we're going to be doing. So our goal, defining what we want, typically losing weight, keeping and growing muscles, being healthy and not going crazy, and being able to sustain it in the long term. Those are the four things that we talked about dieting. And so I wanted to talk to you today about the most popular diets of our era. So there are a few of them. We're going to talk about paleo. We're going to talk about keto, vegan, this idea of clean eating, and then macro counting. And so I'm going to give you a brief overview of all of them, and then we'll kind of dig into some of the recommendations I have based on that. So paleo, what is paleo? So the Paleolithic diet, it's been around, probably it hit popular culture roughly 10, 15 years ago. It kind of came hand in hand with CrossFit. So a lot of CrossFitters really, really liked the idea of paleo. I think it was this primal movement, primal food kind of a thing. So really what paleo is, it's a list of foods that someone said that our ancestors ate. And then a list of foods that someone said our ancestors don't eat, right? And so your goal is to eat the things our ancestors ate and not the things they didn't eat, because our stomachs, again, this is not me saying this is true, because I think it's a bunch of bullcrap. Our stomachs aren't designed to eat and digest and do whatever with this list of foods that you're not supposed to eat. So things that it's this weird evolving list, but you're not supposed to have processed stuff. You're not supposed to have beans and legumes. And the funny thing is, it depends on the level of intensity you get into your paleo. So some people are like, oh, russet potatoes, those are fine. And so other people are like, oh no, only sweet potatoes are fine for some magical reason. And so the paleo can totally work for a lot of people, and it's a really it's a diet that I think a lot of people find joy in. So if you like it, go for it, but don't remove these foods just because you think they're healthy, right? Because you can just as easily get fat on paleo and not lose weight on paleo. And it kind of ties hand in hand with the next one, which is the ketogenic diet. So ketogenic, it's based off this process in your body where effectively you use fat as energy. It's called ketosis. And so it converts fat molecules into these cells that your brain can use for energy, right? Typically, the only time we really go into ketosis is during a starvation. So if you ever hear of starvation mode, the keto diet is the closest thing to it. So to be effective, to get into ketosis and to really truly follow the keto diet, you need to be having fat in your diet somewhere in the 75 to 80% range as far as gross calories go. So you need to be eating a lot of fat. Very, very few carbs, very, very little protein as well. And the reason for that is if you have protein or carbs in your diet, those can throw you out of ketosis and you're no longer truly in keto. And so what most people do with ketosis, they do what I call a modified paleo, where it's effectively they're eating paleo and eating off that list, but they're focusing more on the fatty stuff, right? This is also a modified Atkins. So paleo, keto, and Atkins, I kind of think of those as a trinity. They're very, very similar. They typically shame carbs. Paleo less so than keto and Atkins, but carbs are typically pushed off to the side and said this group of foods is the devil, right? And so most people, if you go on keto, you'll fail. Last I checked, it has a success rate of under 5%. So most people who choose to go on keto don't stay on it for a long period of time, and the bounce back rate, meaning how much weight you gain afterwards, is exorbitant. So you're going to gain a lot of weight afterwards. So those are kind of your three big meat ones. I didn't really talk about Atkins because I feel like most people know what it is, but paleo and keto, those kind of are their buddies. And then on the opposite side, first off, why do people go for paleo and keto? Again, it's this idea of naturalism or organic. It's a fallacy in rhetoric where you think something comes from the origin, So you say the beginning thing is the best thing, right? So since we evolved eating this groupings of food, we should continue to eat this groupings of food, right? If we followed that logic train down the path, like we would never use a cell phone, we would never drink out of these metal mugs. Like the fallacy breaks down really, really quickly. So the naturalistic fallacy, right? The natural thing, the thing that comes from nature, is always the best. And so it's not true. It's not necessarily like the list of foods that that keto people and paleo people choose not to eat. Like they can fit into any diet, right? And I'm kind of tipping my hand as to at the end of this series. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the vegan movement, right? And so the vegan movement typically starts out with really, really good intentions, right? I don't like to see animals killed, ergo, I'm not going to consume any of their products, right? So there's, I'm not going to touch any of the ethical reasons behind veganism. If you're ethically vegan or ethically vegetarian, like more power to you. I understand that. However, if you are going to try and get into veganism or vegetarianism for weight loss, and that is your prime motivator, I would caution you for to doing that, right? It is not necessarily the best thing, right? Because usually this is how things go. Like, I'm gonna go vegetarian. That means I'm gonna eat vegetables, and you start off with a big salad the first day, and you're like, yes, and you have a bunch of vegetables the next day, and you're like, yes, and then by the third day you are sick and tired of tofu. You don't want to have any more tofu, so you just say, you know what? I'm just gonna have the simple carbs. I'm gonna get some tortillas, and you die, right? And it's really, really difficult for you to lose weight. I know a ton of vegetarians and a ton of vegans like who are really unhappy with their weight because they went down this path and they had the best intentions to eat a lot of vegetables, but they're loading up with for vegetarians like cheese and eggs and a lot of fattier foods because they just don't know what to do and where to go. So that's kind of my bent on veganism and vegetarianism. If it's for like ethical reasons, go for it. If it's for health reasons, like there's not a whole lot of evidence that I would say is good evidence that says it's good for you. Yeah, eating more vegetables is always a good thing, right? But eating only vegetables, it's really hard to lose weight that way. Trust me on this one. The third diet we want to talk about is this idea of clean eating, right? This one makes me it makes me giggle because I can't tell you how many sessions I've had with someone, and I'm taking notes. I'm like, writing down. Okay, yeah. Tell me what you tell me about your diets you've gone on, and they say, clean eating. And there's this long pause, and I'm like, okay, cool. Tell me what you mean by that. And like, yeah, clean eating, like a lot of chicken. And again, another long pause. I'm like, and usually it's just like a chicken diet. Like for most people, like clean eating is like a chickatarian diet is what I would kind of call it, right? It's chicken and rice and broccoli and vegetables, and that's what most people eat when they go on this clean eating diet. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's so hard to define, right? And when you don't define something well, you can't live within it. One of my favorite authors, his name is Brandon Sanderson, and he's famous for these incredible magic systems in his worlds. And he says the better you understand your magic system, the better you can write stories that integrate it and move the plot forward with it. Which is controversial in the writing world in and of itself, but I think the same goes for diets. The better you can define your parameters, the better you can move your plot forward and move towards your goals, right? So clean eating, I think it's one of those things like it's not a real diet, it doesn't have definition, and most people don't know what it means. The final phase of this, or the thing we're going to talk about is this idea of macros, or IFFM, if it fits your macros, so if it fits your macros, right? So macros, what are macros? Macros are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, the macronutrients. And so pretty much what that says is the diet says if your goal is to lose weight, you have X amount of protein, X amount of carbohydrates, and X amount of fats that you should be eating every single day. And doesn't matter what you put in there. You can eat Twinkies, you can drink beer, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do, as long as it fits these numbers. And I think a lot of people really like this one because it gives you so much freedom. If you can track your food, like MyFitnessPal on your phone is a fantastic way to do it. If you can track your food, then you can lose weight, right? And I have an affinity for this one. I think this one works probably the best out of all the diets, but it still requires coaching. It still requires you to learn some skills, but I think it has the longest, it has the most longevity because it actually teaches you a skill and how to do it. It's if you've ever done like Weight Watchers, like Points or something like that, that's kind of what this is, right? Points are just kind of like a bastardized version of macros, and so all of the fit bros, we love to, like say, oh yeah, you tracking your macros, bro. So it can get a little bro heavy, and people who are into macro tracking and macro counting, like they are into it. It is like their thing, and they will belittle you if you contradict them. And so I think there's a little bit of righteous, maybe unrighteous anger that goes on in that group. So that's kind of the overview. You have paleo, keto, vegan, clean eating, and macro counting. And I think the biggest thing to look at is like, what do they have in common, right? And what are the common threads for success? And this is where I really want you to pay attention, right? So paleo, keto, vegan, clean eating, like those four, what they do is they typically arbitrarily remove a list of foods, right? And they take things away. And when you completely remove a food group or a category of foods, like you lose weight. And here's why, because you don't know what to eat, right? Like you're like, I guess I should just eat off this list, and you tend to eat less, and that is why you lose weight. What happens over time is that marketers destroy diets, right? When Atkins first came out, like it was like meat, vegetables, like that was pretty much it. And then marketers came out with these like Atkins bars and Atkins this and Atkins that, and like someone said, all right, I can have it's Atkins, I can eat it, and they magically gained weight again. Same thing happened with paleo, right? You have now like paleo jerky, paleo granola, paleo this, paleo that, and people were losing weight on it, and now they magically don't. Same thing happened with keto cheesecake, keto this, keto that, and magically you gain weight. Vegan, again, like I mentioned it, like I know a ton of chubby or fat vegans and vegetarians because like they just can't. It's really hard to sustain, and the marketers ruin it. Clean eating, like the natural, the healthy, the this, the that, macros even gets ruined. And so and the reason they get ruined is because we're not founded in like the base ideas of weight loss, right? And so I'll talk about the base, like what happens next in as far as weight loss goes, and where you really should be focusing your attention. That'll be on the next video because this one's getting a little bit long, and I really wanted to give you an overview of what's out there and why they all pretty much suck. So that's kind of the idea. So most of these diets just remove something arbitrarily and you lose weight initially, but you can't sustain it because like, hey, you're going to want a beer every so often. You're going to want some chocolate. You're going to want something that is not on that list. And once you've broken the seal, it's kind of like Pandora's box, or like, I don't know another analogy, but it's kind of like Pandora's box. You crack it open and you can't help but like going for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And then a month goes by, your face is covered in chocolate and you're like, what happened? I'm back to where I started, or worse. So that's it, guys. That's it for today. I hope that was helpful. I hope it gave you an overview of what diets are out there. And I won't leave you in that much suspense as far as what the next steps are, because the next video is really where emotions and science meet, because that is, in my opinion, that's the magic, right? If you can make those two things meet, your emotions and what available science we have out there, take away all the controversy, we'll clear that up tomorrow, and we'll get at it, okay? So emotions and science tomorrow. Love you. Bye.